I would go to YouTube to teach my lessons. I would go to YouTube, find like Wedding at Cana, like an animated version, and like post that on my Zoom for them to watch it, and then like ask questions after. So when we went back in person, I was kind of like, oh, I wish I had a projector here so we could like keep learning this way, but we didn't.
Or previously, like talking to like some of the older generation and talking, or not older, but like in a previous generation, talking about how Sunday school was before, and a lot of times there was talks about like how different the resources were, how maybe the books weren't fully translated, or there was talks about oh, we didn't even have Sunday school to begin with, and there was we had to go to Roman Catholic Church. So
at the same time, we want them to feel open enough to share their thoughts, to share their feelings with us, what is going on in their lives, because if they can't share it with us, who are they going to share that with?
In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. As was the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, and ever shall be.
Without that end. Amen.
Amen. 3, 2, 1, action.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Tea with Thomas. Thank you for joining in. We appreciate your participation so much. We're also very grateful for your continued support and enthusiasm from everyone. We have been getting a lot of views and a lot of support from the United States, Canada, the UK, a lot of different places across India, like Pune, Delhi, and all of Kerala. So really are happy and thankful to you for joining in. Also, we're very excited to explore a vital aspect of our faith with two esteemed guests on this show, Siby Chechi and Mani Chechi. Yeah.
Woo, thank you both for coming on.
Yeah. And they'll be sharing their insights and experiences with the topic of catechism, actually. So we'll be delving into the teachings and how they applied it on their lives. Specifically, they'll be addressing the unique challenges and the opportunities of living out their faith in North America. Thank you for having us, and thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us. We're excited.
Awesome. So I just want you guys to introduce yourself and share your personal background on your experiences growing up in the Catechism in the United States. Really would appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. I'll go. My name is Marnie. I am from St. Jude, Philadelphia. Woo, go Birds. I'm a nurse. I work as a nurse, and I am Sunday school principal here. I started off as the kindergarten teacher right out of high school, and now I became principal. I also sing in the choir. I did lighter English choir for a while, but I'm trying to let the kids do that now. Yeah, just got married recently. I have a husband now. I have a dog.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
Chechi?
So my name is Siby, and I'm from the Houston parish. Go Houston! And Philly. So I work as a social worker. I've been working as a social worker for 20 plus years, so that kind of shows my age. I work at a hospital, MD Anderson, with cancer patients. I am currently the Sunday school principal. I've been in this role for almost 4 years. Prior to that, I've held a lot of positions in the church within MCYM itself as office bearer positions, animator, church secretary, and now Sunday school principal, like I said. Also doing work within the committee, currently organizing the Ornum program, and helping out with MCYM still, even though I'm out of that, but there to support. Go MCYM. But I will say that out of all the positions throughout my life, Sunday school is my most favorite one. My husband, I've been married, and Mike, yes, he is very supportive. He's actually the MCYM animator. And so it's nice to be able to work with him, collaborate with him also, because as you know, Sunday school has, MCYM members in there too. So yeah, that's pretty much about me a little bit.
Yay. Awesome. Thank y'all both for, first of all, thank y'all for coming on. I know Kason, me, and Jarek, and all the rest of our whole team really do appreciate y'all taking your time out. And especially not just in terms of this conversation, but also generally for what y'all do for your church. Like y'all both said, being active is very inspirational, not just for us, the ones that are, getting to talk to you, but for the greater, longer community as well. So thank y'all both for that. And I wanted to kind of tie on with our conversation, right, starting off with what y'all just mentioned, which is about the way that you guys are involved. And so, especially like you guys both said, you guys are both principals for your respective catechism, Sunday school, learnings. But specifically on that, how did you guys, I guess, start off on that? I know generally the idea is as a principal, you kind of start off as a catechism teacher. But for that starting off aspect, how did that kind of come about? How did you become a Sunday school teacher, a catechism teacher? And then how did that eventually lead you towards the pathway to, becoming a principal? Siby, can you start off with that?
Yeah, of course. So I've been teaching in Sunday school for 20 plus years, same time as my career, pretty much. And I taught a few grades, like second and fourth grade in the past. So to see those kids grown, married now is like amazing. But I've always taught, enjoyed teaching. That was one of my things that I didn't realize until later on in my career, how I and like teaching, like I was a preceptor at my former job, helping with new hires, starting to get back in that with work. So that's where my teaching stuff kind of came from. And then I love children. I just love working with children. Wanted to be a pediatrician, but since that wasn't God's plan, I think this was, Sunday, being involved in Sunday school. So I was teacher. And then when we started the MCCL program in 2019 in Houston, I actually volunteered to be the MCCL animator for Jesus Kids. And I thought that would be fun because when we think about catechism, we're focused on teaching the lessons, learning, growing in the faith from like, these sources, right? But MCCL was like fun activities to incorporate the faith and help them with their walk of life, their walk with Jesus. So I was excited. And of course, I love little kids. So I was like, I'll be the Jesus Kids animator. And so once I got involved with that, and we had more activities, they actually approached me to be principal. And I will be honest with you, I was scared. I was nervous because I was, I know it takes a lot of work and commitment, because these are kids and you have to make sure that you're properly implementing stuff. Because for me personally, I would never want one child to leave Sunday school because of they don't like it. And so
Right.
I prayed about it. I was like, God, is this like something that you want me to do, or should I just stick with my MCCL animator position? And so literally like the next day I just started getting ideas of things to do. And I was like, I guess that's your way of telling me what, take this role. And so of course, I, took that role and here I am now. I love working like that, working with the kids and doing more of the implementing ideas to make change because I think that's a big thing. And hearing from the kids what they want and trying to implement it, that's why I took that on. So that way there could be change because sometimes we're scared, but we got to get out of that comfort zone in order to see some change happen. So yeah, hopefully that answers that.
No,
Beautiful.
that was perfect. Yeah, I think for me, I kind of related to your aspect of like, you've always kind of been a Sunday school teacher, especially in terms of like from when you started your career as well. Because, I just started my career as well. And along that same path, it wasn't for you as well, like kind of prodding me to be a Sunday school teacher. I wouldn't be one as well. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And then Money Chichi, I know, Jarek has talked highly of you, especially in terms of the impact that you've made on the people around you. And so I'd love to learn more about especially your journey. How did you become a Sunday school teacher, and then how did that eventually lead towards you being the principal?
Yeah, I started right out of high school in 12th grade. Um, uh, I don't know what caused me to do this, but I love family members at my church, teachers. So my aunt was teaching kindergarten at the time, and I too love children. And I also wanted to be I'm now a NICU nurse, so I'm kind of there, but not really. But my aunt was teaching kindergarten, so I would just sub in for her class sometimes. And then my uncle was actually the principal, for like 2019 to like or 2017 to 2020 or so. He was principal, so he would always need help, like just with paperwork or like setting up exams and stuff. And like as he was doing that, I was like, I actually love what he's doing. I was obsessed with it, and I was like, oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait because my turn is coming to be principal. Like after he's done, it's gonna be me. And then I also would sub in for other classes. And then what really triggered it was BOC. I would always be in charge of our BOCs at our church. Well, no, the principals were always in charge. But then in 2019, I realized that like the kids weren't really loving the BOCs that the older uncles and aunties were running as much because it was more lecture based, right? So in 2019, me and my cousin went in and we kind of revamped the entire BOC to make it like we decorated the whole basement of our church and like just spent a lot of time on it and made it more like fun oriented, but also with learning involved. And when that happened and I saw how much the kids were obsessed with it, I was like, oh, I need to be in this role. I feel like this is my calling. I have to be here. And that's really how I got it. I also prayed about it forever. And I was like, one day it's going to happen. And in 2023, it happened. So that's how I got here.
Yep.
No,
No,
yeah,
oh, sorry. I just wanted to say something really quick, actually. As you, Manitechi, you just said, it's a calling, right? You feel like, okay, you're put into a position because, hey, someone told you. But at the end of the day, if you really think about it, it is God's call, for you to take that position and, actually lead, right? So I'm very, very happy to hear that. I think you accepted your call, just like always, all of us are supposed to accept our call in life, right? And I think being a catechist is actually one of the toughest things to do in the church. It is super tough. You have a lot of children with a lot of curiosity who just want to ask questions, as well as you have to deliver on your lessons, right? You just have to implement what the Catholic Church is actually teaching too. So thank you for your guys' service. Appreciate it.
yeah. I just wanted to quickly say, like, literally, I feel like Kason and I, we basically just thought of the same thing as well. The whole guiding aspect in terms of, like, especially in our church, right? We have so many people around us, and I think that also comes to a benefit as well when people are able to speak their minds to us and be able to say, like, hey, here's something where I think it'll be beneficial for our church, but beneficial for you as well to make an impact on. And so callings come in so many different ways, and I appreciate the community that we have in our churches as well to be able to kind of talk to each other about it. So that's awesome. Yeah.
Also, I just had a quick question for you guys as well. We went through the pandemic very recently, and I just wanted to, because I was in a Sunday school teacher at the time, so I just started 2 years ago, or maybe a year ago, sorry. So this is going to be my second year teaching, and I did not have the COVID experience as you guys had, perhaps. But so, can you guys tell me more about like how that was a challenge for you? Maybe about like how your church dealt with that during that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll
Manitechi?
go. Yeah. It was actually kind of crazy for us because we had just moved into a new church in January of 2020, and this church had beautiful classrooms, right? We never had classrooms in our old church. Well, we had a couple, but like there was enough for all 12 grades in this beautiful new church. And we were like, oh, this is going to be amazing, incredible. And then COVID happened in March. So kind of was a downer. I can't even remember if we did use the classrooms from January till March. I can't remember. But yeah, it was a crazy time. We did classes over Zoom. I think John Edithel was the principal at the time, and he did an amazing work. We would literally watch mass. We would watch mass, live stream mass on TV, all of us, like in my house anyway. And then all the teachers would get on Zoom and just have classes with their individual grades. And then for like 30 minutes to an hour. And then the kids would just sit there and listen, I guess. I don't know. I still taught. My aunt like let me teach during COVID. So I did kindergarten and we would just sing songs. We actually for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter, me and the first grade teacher, second grade teacher, third grade teacher, we actually like made little craft packets and like mailed it to their houses. And then we would get on a big Zoom call and then we would all just do it together for those like big holiday events. And it was so cute. It was really cute. I don't miss it, but I do miss it because it actually was really sweet, the way we made it work. But yeah, that's how we coped.
That's how you coped, right? Sibitechi?
So yeah, at that time I wasn't principal. So I was actually
Oh,
teaching second grade. And I remember like, yeah, they're telling us, hey, we have to shut down the church, but we're going to continue Sunday school and everybody get online. So of course, at that time we had a lot of older teachers too. So technology was hard and, trying to get on Zoom with the students. Some of them were having the students do the links and sending them out. So it was a big challenge. For the teachers who are, of course, younger, my age, I'm not saying I'm younger, but at least my age, we didn't have a problem. We all got the free Zoom account. And, we started doing classes online. We try to stick with the schedule that we had. So at that time, we were starting Sunday schools at 8:45 a.m., going until, 9:45, 10 o'clock, because technically we'd start at 8:45, but not really start until 9 at that time. And so that's why we were like trying to keep some consistency with the kids because we know that if we don't, then they'll get laxed, right? And they'll be like, okay, there's no Sunday school. I don't have to do anything. So we kept that timing the same. As soon as we were done, we'd tell them, it's time to go for mass. So everybody go log in, get onto YouTube, watch mass. We're keeping everything the same, even though we're not physically there. We try to follow that same process as we did in Sunday school. It was also hard trying to keep activities going because, kids were in their homes, getting bored. Aaron knows our Achin is great at activities planning, so I kind of got on board with that, coordinating activities. We did a lot of during the summer. I remember doing some competitions. So homemaking, cooking, gardening competitions, and the kids would have to. They can pick what they wanted to do, and record, and then send the video to us, and then we would pick the best video. And at the end of the year, we were giving a prize to the best video out of, best one out of each of the category. So that was something to just make sure the kids were continuing to be engaged, at least something to do. Um, the Eparchy, I noticed that time, and I think that's when I got a little bit more involved with the Eparchy stuff, because at that time the MCCL coordinator, Elizabeth Chechi, who's in DC, she got me involved, and she was doing a lot of these YouTube videos of the lessons. So it was basically the textbook lessons. We would create a PowerPoint, and then they were converting it to a YouTube video. So that way teachers could use that to present while they were teaching online, because we all know just sitting and staring at the screen at each other, that's not going to work. The kids are going to get distracted, especially when I was dealing with second graders. So we would play the video, and that would keep their attention there, and we were able to teach them. So I was part of that. It was actually, if you go to some of the grades, my voice is one of the voice overs, because I spent a lot of time helping with that. So the YouTube videos are there still, because it's actually some of our teachers still utilize it, the PowerPoints, because the textbook, the textbook we all know is old. It's not up to date. And so all of those PowerPoints were put together by various teachers throughout the Eparchy. Everybody pitched in during that time, and I loved how teachers from all over were helping with different grades, the voiceovers, all this kind of stuff. It took a lot of work, but I feel like it was worth it for our kids at that time and now too. So yeah, there were challenges, but we made it. Another thing our kids did was they made cards to the nursing home patients,
Oh.
because they couldn't have their visitors. At that time I was working at an outpatient clinic, and I saw these patients coming in and telling me that my family can't come and see me. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And so we talked about it with the kids, and they made cards, and parents had just dropped it off at the church. And then we put it all together for Utchin to take to the nursing home, because he would go there to give communion and stuff. So yeah, that was actually pretty good to get the kids engaged and involved.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Also, yeah, awesome. One thing I found very interesting was, I think most people could agree to this as well. Is just when COVID happened, everyone's creativity just spiked. They're just figuring out ways to do so many great activities. I think one of the fruits of the times were actually your presentations, the PowerPoints that you put out there, the videos and all that. So I think that was an amazing fruit of our creativity, honestly. Something to carry on even still, right?
Yeah.
So that was a great thing to say.
I was going to add also, like for the younger grades anyway, when I was teaching kindergarten, I would use I don't think there was PowerPoints for kindergarten per se, but I would put, I would go to YouTube to teach my lessons. I would go to YouTube, find like Wedding at Cana, like an animated version, and like post that on my Zoom for them to watch it, and then like ask questions after. So we went back in person. I was kind of like, oh, I wish I had a projector here so we could like keep learning this way, but we didn't. It was just too much to do. But they really like enjoyed watching the animated. Like it was easier for the younger kids, like when you had an animated like video on screen, for them to like actually learn more, which is surprising because who wants to learn through Zoom? But
that's how I learned.
Yeah, and I love the fact that, like Asen said, after that event, spurning so many different creative choices and changes, remnants of that still continue by, like me, for example, still continuing to use those PowerPoint presentations in my 11th grade class. And so, yeah, that's amazing. I hope that, we'll continue to be in that trajectory where, we see these changes not as, things that we need to kind of avoid, but things that we should incorporate if we see, positive change from our kids. So that's amazing. Thank y'all both for, continue to make sure that your teachers are well equipped and understanding that there's so many different ideas that they can use. So that's awesome. But I want to kind of maybe turn back the time a little bit more, especially to you guys as when you guys were younger. I know that for Kason and I, our experience in Sunday school versus the kids that are currently in Sunday school might be a little bit more similar in taste versus your guys' experience in Sunday school. I remember previously like talking to like some of the older generation and talking, or not older, but like in a previous generation, talking about, how Sunday school was before. And a lot of times, there was talks about like how different the resources were, how, maybe the books weren't fully translated, or there was talks about, oh, we didn't even have Sunday school to begin with. And there was, we had to go to Roman Catholic Church. So kind of want to get both of y'all's personal experiences. So I want to ask you as a child or a student, how was your experience with the Catechism program in North America, whatever that was? Mani Chechi, could you kind of spread some light on that?
Yeah. So we started off, our church we started off in a basement of another church. And from my earliest memory of Sunday school, we didn't ever have like actual full classes. Like we didn't have K through 12. We had like K through 1 was like, or K through 2 was like a group that would learn together. And then like 3rd through 5th. And then like, I can't remember the exact grade groups that we had. But it wasn't until we moved to our newer church that we started actually having a teacher for every single grade. And we didn't have books like way back then either. My earliest memory was probably in like 1st or 2nd grade of Sunday school, where all I remember from that time was my achachin, who was my teacher, promised me candy if I got all the questions right. So that's my earliest memory. But then moving to our new church, and when we actually had grades, like each grade, and got the textbooks, I guess like back in my earliest memories, I don't remember the testing at all, but there was a change where we went from like the teachers of each parish would write the tests, and those tests were so easy. And then at some point in my what am I trying to say? And during my time in Sunday school, they went to like standardized testing, and I was like, oh, what is this? What are we doing here?
became real. Mhm.
It got real, real quick.
These tests are not easy anymore. But my memory from when we got to the newer church was just that it was so competitive in our time. Like everybody just wanted to be 1st or 2nd, and if you weren't 1st or 2nd, we all like got mad at each other and like hated each other for like a couple of days, and then got over it eventually. But I literally remember studying for Sunday school exams the whole week. Like before the exam, I would stay up Saturday nights until like 2 a.m. studying just to take this exam. And I was like, at first I was like, what am I doing this for? Am I doing it because I want to, or am I doing it because, I just want to beat the person in my class? But eventually, I think by 12th grade, literally my 12th grade is when I started realizing that I just need to know this knowledge to be Melanchrite. Like this is important for my like future. Like, so I continue to carry this on for kids in my life in the future and my kids in church. So eventually it got to a point of I'm just going to learn this material to want to learn it rather than do it for the competition of getting 1st or 2nd place. And then it became more fun for me actually, when I actually cared about knowing the information rather than doing it just to get 1st place on the test. But yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, like my earliest memory of like when our oldest church, I can't remember really how it was, but that's how it is now. It was for me then in 12th grade is when it hit me.
Yeah, you bring up a good point of like, as the kind of the challenge of Sunday school kind of arose, the competition aspect kind of arose as well, especially when we're younger. And I think it's an important point as well. I feel like a lot of times in Sunday school, we feel that competition aspect to it. I feel like we'll probably have some time later on to kind of touch on that aspect later. But yeah, Siby Chichi, how about you? How was your experience?
So mine's totally different because, of course, we didn't have Mullinger Church that time when I was going to CCE classes, as they call it, the Roman Catholic Church. So that's where I was attending, my courses and everything. And when we actually formed our parish or church at that, it was 1985. And so I was already like in CCE classes and and baptized in a Roman Catholic church back in Detroit, where I was born. And I didn't have this process. So and you all know that in our church, in the Mullinger Church, baptism and confirmation goes at the same time, right? So I didn't have that. And that means that I had to get confirmation later on in life. So I got my communion early. And then in my teen years, I went through the courses for the confirmation courses with one of my friends from church who got married, and she's not there anymore. But we went together and, we did the classes together. And then it was like this big group of people on kind of like how we have our parish feast and everything. It's so big, and they have a visiting bishop or somebody. And so it was kind of like that. And so honestly, I don't remember so much of it because it wasn't like personable. I mean, I had my friend there, but it wasn't like a lot of people, right? It's kind of like this group of people that come and got the confirmation. We did a small class together. But as I look now, when I started teaching in the Sunday school here for our church, I felt like, oh my gosh, I wish I had this, I wish I had this when I was growing up, because those small classes with a teacher that is making a relationship with you and it's consistent and you continue to see them every Sunday. It's not like it's someone different. You may not be in that grade that you're going in the next grade, but you still see those teachers at church and you're having that relationship. And so I was like, wow, I wish I had this. And then I also was learning stuff from the Mullinger Church along with it because I didn't know a lot because when I was going through the CC class here. And so as I was teaching, I would go to my dad, who's like hardcore Mullingerite, and be like, well, what is this? What is, and all these questions started coming up then. And then he was like explaining to it. So in a way, I could say I was learning with the students as I was going to, looking at the lessons. So it was really different. So, but like I said, I'm still learning as I go. There are a lot of things I will admit, things come up and I'm like, I did not know that, and I think it's just a continued learning experience for me personally, because I didn't have this when I was growing up.
Yeah.
That was my experience.
Yeah, well said. One thing you said was you're still learning it. So are all of us here and everyone in this too, right?
Yes.
We're all going through it, and it brings up a bigger point. It is that catechism is a lifelong process. It doesn't end with 12th grade or a certificate, and hey, you're done, move on. Nothing like that. I think you brought up a very good point. I think also Money Teaching first, actually, you brought up a very good point was when you're studying with intent, right? When you're learning catechism with intent, you learn more and you'll actually love to learn it at a better pace and you want to absorb it, right? And as CBTT said, I think I think you mentioned amazing points regarding this, especially when people were making personal relationships with you that allowed you to learn at a better rate, as well as you really appreciate the person that actually taught you, right? And you also exhibit the love that Christ had for you as well. So, and it's just an amalgamation of everything. So great points.
Yeah, I want to kind of touch on the aspect of maybe let's going back a little bit and kind of explaining what catechism is, right? I think a lot of us, if you're especially like a Mullingerite and you've gone through, like our Mullinger Catholic Church system, and if you are in Sunday school right now or you graduate Sunday school, you kind of understand how it is. There's grades and there's like a very rigid structure, but catechism essentially is just the teachings of the church, right? Our church has so many different things, and the way that our church is able to kind of present that to us are in various ways, right? And one of them is through like our Sunday schools, whether that be like Mani Chichi said her experience with the Mullinger Catholic Church in small groups, and eventually making that more of a structure, and compare that to Siby Chichi's experience with in a Roman Catholic Church. Roman Catholic churches also have this Sunday school structure, the CCE structure as well, and so our listeners might be, thinking about it in their sense, especially the Mullinger Catholic listeners might be thinking, oh, I wonder what a Roman church, like teaches. And in essence, it's faith-wise, it's the same exact things, right? We teach the same things, except maybe difference in terms of history, of course, because if you've opened up our books, we're going to be a lot more of the Mullinger Catholic history, and not necessarily a bad thing at all. I think has a great, a lot of knowledge as well, that I appreciate now because I get to kind of share those experiences as well. And it's not just history either; it's also liturgically as well, right? Understanding how our liturgy is the beauty of our liturgy and the way the parts of the church itself, what makes up our church, and all of it coming together into such a beautiful package. And like I said, it's not just our Sunday school as well, right? It's also resources such as the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Like the word catechism is in it for a great reason because it teaches us a lot about our church. And I encourage our listeners as well to continue as they grow, not just in Sunday school, but like Kason said, as they step forward to use these resources wherever they can find it.
Also, I just wanted to say something about the Catechism of the Catholic Church. It was a byproduct of the Second Vatican Council, actually. So if you like a little bit of history that I actually learned was that, especially after the Vatican II Council, I think St. John Paul II was like, hey, we need to carry that spirit onward, right? With the people, have it in documentation. So I think 30 years after the Second Vatican Council, we actually had the Catechism of the Catholic Church. And even now, there's a podcast on that by Father Mike Smith, right? And he's doing a great job with that too. But also, I think Aaron said it very beautifully. There's different elements to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, right? First, it talks about the profession of your faith, then it talks about the Christian mystery, then your life in Christ, right? Then it gets topics about Catholic social teaching and all that, right? Then about Christian prayer. So if you reflect, or if we reflect on what we learned in Catechism, we see that that was spread across our experiences throughout our 12 years, right? That we were in catechism. So yeah, it's great to see that, there's actually a full exposition on that in a book form for us to really understand the Catholic doctrine and digest the scripture and sacred tradition very well. So yeah, thank you guys for sharing that. That really sparked something.
Absolutely, yeah. And one more thing to note before we kind of move on, I wanted to share that the Catechism itself, it speaks, Catechism of the Catholic Church itself speaks on what Catechism is. I wanted to kind of bring some quotes as well. So in CCC 5, it says, Catechesis is an education of the faith of children, young people, and adults, and includes the teachings of the Christian doctrine, right? Imparted, directly speaking, in an organic and systemic way, with the view of initiating the hearers into the fullness of Christian life. So it's a very, and this is the fifth, like section, right? So it really like inspires you to like really welcomes in the listeners. I know a lot of people, listeners and readers, I know a lot of people like when they see the book itself, they get really intimidated by the size, but and I was intimidated as well when I first looked at it as well, and I'm still going through it. But at the same time, I see the welcomeness and openingness to it, and for me, it leads me to a lot of personal growth, and not just on, how can I myself grow, but how can I use what the Catechism teaches me in a way that Catechism continues on with my Milagro Church, right? In our Sunday school, how do I impart those lessons that I'm learning from here into into my kids as I teach them as well? So awesome stuff. Thank y'all both again. Wanted to move on to the next topic as well, where we're going to be talking about a little bit more into what some of our listeners might be thinking as well. I know that we've talked a great deal on how how previously the Mullingar Catholic Church and its catechism has grown in structure, and currently it's set in a way that we have a hierarchy of sorts. We have a faith formation board that's been able to create some great structure, and at the same time be able to pass along some guidelines, as well as some great resources. And as we move forward as well, our kids are also the ones on the receiving end. And I know that Kason and I have both taken some time as well to kind of reach out to like people in our church, people in our community, and to kind of see like what they think of the catechism, of how Sunday school is doing currently in our churches. Kason, do you have any thoughts that you've seen from listeners, readers, anyone it may be?
Yeah, I think there was a couple of people that had this experience, and it's like a positive point that they loved is, and I attest to this too, is when teachers really make their lessons very personal, especially the 11th and 12th grades. Like there's so much potential to, really bring the words to life, right? Of course, you have to supplement it with, Catechism of the Catholic Church, maybe people's experiences, drawing from people's different life stories, stories of saints, all that to really bring in like a full well thought lesson actually. So that's something that people told me about. Hey, Case, and I loved when my teacher made it personal and asked us, rather than asking us questions and expecting us to just read it and just come and regurgitate all that on an exam, made it personal and really talk to us heart to heart, right? And that is something I take away, and I love when even younger kids are saying that too. I mean, when I think there is a change that's happening. I see within our community, within the general Catholic Church, actually, there is a move for a personalized conversation. I love that part of it. It's like a family, right? It's like you're fostering a friendship while you are, of course, between a teacher and a student, right? And of course, also I started to notice that sometimes the blurring of lines between a teacher and student also happens too, because when you're learning, right? When you're presenting, when you're teaching, you're also learning as well. You become part of the process. You want to learn from the students as well, right? They provide great initiatives and good topics to actually go off from. So I really love that from our kids as well. They give amazing ideas.
Just to piggyback off of what you just said, just from my experience alone, like in first grade, like I said, my Jachin promised me candy, and that's like my core memory that I remember from Sunday school. But not only that, from like, if you ask me what my best years of Sunday school were, I'll say it was 10th grade and 12th grade. And it was honestly because those two teachers, you could tell, like 10th grade is a tough class. It's a really tough class to teach. And I will never forget everything I've learned in that class because of who the teacher was. Like, she was very personable. She would like call us on the outside and make sure, like, just check in on us, make sure we're okay. Like, we got the material down. And then 12th grade at the time didn't have a book when I was in 12th grade. So he wrote his entire curriculum on his own, but it was just, it was the best class I've ever taken in Sunday school, right? And it was because of who the people were, the teachers were. So I also had that personal connection, like with my teachers to this day, I'll never forget. So yeah, I'm glad that's still something that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add that especially with what you guys are talking about, I think it really highlights the aspect of being perceptive. I see it a lot, especially with kids. I think when I was younger, I was very, very hesitant to kind of share my own opinion on how I see things and, how things are moving forward with our church. And so I think like over time, it gave me a lot more confidence, especially gotten into my high school years, to be able to kind of share what I thought about, Sunday school and the way that I wanted to make things better. And I also see it in the way that kids are now as well. I feel like social media especially kind of has helped our younger generation open up a lot more. And to a degree, I would say it's given me a lot more power and understanding of their own perspective of Sunday school. Sibchi, can you kind of highlight, I guess, like some of the things that you've been seeing from like the younger generation? What are you seeing in terms of like the way that they are kind of approaching Sunday school? Are they being receptive to it? What are you seeing as a principal of your Sunday school?
So currently as the principal, I mean, I can say prior, like I know before being principal, I could see kids like just dragging to come in. And it goes back to what I said earlier, having teachers that are, older teachers that can't really connect with the kids. I think that plays a big, big factor in that because, you know, like I said earlier, just teaching from the textbook, it's not going to do anything, bottom line. And when you do that, the kids are going to be like, I don't like coming to Sunday school. I'm not getting anything out of it. So my first year becoming principal, I asked the graduates of that year, like, what did you like most about it? What did you like least about it? Because I came in halfway through that year. So I wasn't there for the full year. And so I was just curious, like, what was it? Because then once I start the new academic year, I can try to figure out what to do. And a lot of them told me the same thing, it was boring. I mean, I didn't really get anything out of it. It was just, I was there. And that broke my heart because honestly, I was like, gosh. And it was a reality check because you could like start them off really well in those primary grades, but it's like Money said, you get to those upper grades in high school, and if you're not able to connect with them, and that's like those main years before they exit Sunday school, it's like you're letting them go out into the world with these feelings like, I don't know what to do. And that
Mhm.
was like really heartbreaking for me. So that's when I realized, okay, it's important that they have teachers that they connect with. So Aaron knows this. I slowly, gradually started trying to bring the younger teachers in because they were able to connect easier. And it goes back to building that rapport also. A lot of times, they see us as authority figure, right? Teachers in school. So they see that this way too. But we don't want them to see us like that. We want them to respect us, but at the same time, we want them to feel open enough to share their thoughts, to share their feelings with us, what is going on in their lives. Because if they can't share it with us, who are they going to share that with? Someone from the outside who's going to give them misinformation. And so, it triggered from that perspective of the kids of Sunday school being boring, and then changing all these factors and coming down to try to help. I also see, teenage years, kids, high school, they think they're invincible, It's like, I can do anything. I'm, no one's going to stop me. I'm all this kind of stuff. What are you talking about? Faith, I mean, I pray. That's all I need to do. All this kind of stuff. But it's not as strong. But I think when you have strong teachers that have like a strong faith, that helps them because that's what I had seen. But now being able to see them transitioning into, oh, yeah, hearing them pray, hearing them talk about things, that it all comes from who's teaching them and how it's like the training background, the, knowing what you are teaching these kids. It's so important to know the material, to know the faith, to know what the catechism says, right? Because if you go in and just, teach whatever,
Mhm.
how do you know if you're teaching them the right thing? And then also, kids would tell me before that they couldn't ask questions, you know they if they asked questions, they weren't given the right answer, or they were told, don't ask any questions, let's continue the lesson. And I think that curiosity is so important. Like I had a fifth grader that was asking the teacher, And then the teacher asked me, and I was like, "Wait, that's an Achin question." But it was more like, "Sivichechi, why were the Israelites in slavery when they all had all this gold and stuff? Didn't they have gold? Because in the lesson it said that." And I'm like, okay, the teacher is teaching the lesson, and the kid just had this curious question. I love it, but I said, let's go ask Achin about that, But that's what we want. We want them to be able to ask questions, whether we know the answer or not, because we always have a source to go to. So, that helps with their personal relationship with God too, with Christ, because then as they're learning this stuff, it's getting them closer with their faith and their walk with Jesus. So those were a lot of the things that I've seen.
Yeah. It kind of really gives me like thinking more about, especially as like my own kids give me feedback. And one of the things that they had given me, especially as in their younger grades as well, like Chichi, like you talk about how they're talking about like the material and how they want, more of a connection, especially in the spiritual aspect as well. They also talk about like some of the specific things that they're learning in different grades as well. I think in one of the chapters, I don't know, I wish I remember which grade it was, but like one of the grades talks about like the different like drugs or like tobacco products and things like that, and talks about like Pan Masada. And it's
Yeah.
like, when does this relate to my American life at all? Like this does not connect in any way. So like there's definitely that's like that sort of disconnect as well. And I mean it's very interesting. Manichichi, is there anything else that you're kind of seeing like from your neck of the woods that you see, maybe something that the kids are generally kind of understanding about Sunday school itself that they bring up to their teachers?
I think, I mean, both, like, everyone's saying all the same things. I feel like the same thing over here. Like, I feel like our kids are really seeing Sunday school as something that they just have to do at this point, which is why, like, when I came into principalcy or whatever the proper term is, I was like, I wanted to kind of change that also. Like, I wanted it to be more like, it was very much, they were like, we're just here to learn, but then we go to mass and then we take an exam and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, like, don't, not to not worry about the exam. I know people are going to hate me for saying that. It's important. It's very important. I know it is. But like, if you really just want to know the material, like learn the material and know your history, like just know the molecular history, know basic Catholicism, and like, you'll just be a better person for it, honestly. Like the exams are important. You should try to get good marks on it, but if you can learn to know the material, like just want to know it, and then the exam will come easier for you, right? But it's really hard. I mean, Subjichi touched on so many good points, and all the kids are saying the same things. I feel it's like, I don't know, they just do it to do it at this point. But we're trying to change it. We're trying to make the change, right? It'll get better.
I think your point was very valid as well. I think in the first episode of Tea with Thomas, I talked about my life experiences regarding like how I'm just following things for the sake of doing things, like attending mass, doing Sunday school, and especially when I was struggling through a lot of life issues and all that, I wasn't able to focus and give church the primary attention of my life. So, and catechism was something that I found annoying as well, in my humble opinion, because I felt like it was impersonal. I felt like it was exams I had to do. Of course, there were a lot of good content there. I'm not saying there isn't, but there's awesome content in there that there's a place for that. There's a place and time for that. But I think the way it was given to us wasn't, I think it needed more development. So that's something I wish, but I wish that happened before my 10th grade years. But when I entered my 11th grade and 12th grade years, I think there was a big change. The teacher he's a person near and dear to my heart. He's my mentor in a lot of the ways. So he actually said, Kason, we're gonna learn it together. He hasn't touched a book in a very, very long time, but we're gonna learn it together. You're gonna be my teacher, and I'm gonna be your teacher. I'm gonna be your student, and you're gonna be my student. It's just that blurring of lines, as I said before, I think allows the kids, the students, to be natural with their teachers. And of course, there's a lot of learning points from each of them. So I think that was a great method that my teacher took. And because of that, I was able to do well on essays and stuff. I felt like my words were really true. Like I'm not making stuff up as I go. I was actually feeling what I was writing. And I think those years are much more of essay oriented questions. And you are really pouring out your thought rather than just, hey, this is a multiple choice question. Okay, you have a 25% chance of getting it right. Rather than doing that, it's more thoughtful, and it made me much more of a better Catholic, I would say. That at the end of the day, it made me a better Catholic. And honestly, I became much more involved with MCY and a lot of that, and fell in love with the church because of that experience, especially in that crucial 11th and 12th, right? And I know I had some COVID years in between that as well. But honestly, it was fine. We made sure, even though Sunday school class are supposed to be an hour, we had conversation for 2.5 sometimes. And he's a busy man, but he enjoys talking about his life experiences, and I likewise for me, right? So I really enjoyed that 2 years of my life. It was awesome.
Oh, that's absolutely such a blessing to have people like that in our lives to kind of, continue to inspire us, not just in like the catechism aspect of Sunday school, but also like beyond that as well, into our lives. Like everyone's conversation has been really beautiful. It really makes me think about like my own kind of journey as well in Sunday school. And I think for me, like one of the things that like I got really stuck on that I didn't really move past until like I got to college and I looked back at it and went, okay, maybe this wasn't the best thing for me was just like the competitive aspect competition. I think when I look back at it, it was just very much like I was very stuck into just wanting to compete and compete. And I think that was also just because of the aspect of like parents and the community wanting to make sure that we get like first place in Sunday school exams. And that, carried on from like a young age. And as I grew and, I was in New Jersey probably for a bit until I came to the Houston parish. And then Houston parish as well, whatever the class that I was in, it was always a competitive aspect to continue to make good grades. And really felt disillusioned in my years of just like, I'm not really, like growing in faith, but I'm growing in memorization. I'm growing in, like memorizing Bible verses, memorizing the prayer that needed to be memorized. And then Sunday school just became like just let's just read this, let's try and memorize as much as possible, and then let's go to church and go home. Right. And so like the aspect of like the method of teaching as well was really like super like primitive to a degree as well, because it wasn't challenging my mind at all.
Right.
And it was just very much like a one-dimensional conversation. And the conversation wasn't even with the teacher at all. It was the teacher going around making us read it, and then we just move on, and then we get to the end, and that was class. And so I just look back at it, and I remember in college, that was the first time I got really challenged by people asking me about my faith. And I realized that what have I learned? What have I really learned? How am I actually able to defend my faith at the end? And Sibichit, you talked about it as well in terms of like, how are we kind of sending off our kids? And it really made me think as well. It's like, how do I move forward with my own, catechism life, right? Like, how do I grow in my own faith? And for me, a part of it was also coming back to the Monger Church, coming back to Houston after college, working, and then at the same time being more active in church. And so, growing in my own faith by, not just teaching or taking leadership roles, but also taking the time out of my day to, read the Bible, read the Catechism of the Catholic Church, whatever the case is, actually finding those sources myself. And then at the same time, like, everyone had said, like finding those teachers, being that teacher to inspire the next generation. So kind of making it a full circle event. And I'm hoping our listeners as well can kind of listen in and kind of relate to that as well. I hope that, we're able to kind of shed some light onto these things that we maybe don't want to like say out loud. But at the same time, it's important to have these conversations. And I do want to like kind of touch back as well. Our kids are very perceptive. They really are. They understand what's going on. They want to continue to challenge, not just what's going on in their church, but also in their communities as well, being active in their communities. And so I hope that our listeners and, whether that be teachers, students, anyone in between, adults, continue to have that conversations in their own parishes, are able to, talk to their teachers, to their principals, and, ask the challenging questions. So again, thank you both for kind of touching in on that. And I hope that we're able to, continue this conversation, not just from the podcast, but to our audience and to their local parishes. But I do want to move on to kind of, we talked about the previous, like experiences, not just from our side, but from the experiences of our listeners. And I think the experiences can get really harsh, but I want people to kind of understand that there is like the hope, the salvation, the love that our church continues to bring us is to continue to challenge us and to be able to bring changes. And so I want to ask both of y'all. I want to start off with Sibichit specifically. What improvements and changes are actually being made to the catechism? Maybe specifically going on to like the curriculum and teaching methods. What's exactly going on to see that we're actually making these changes?
So excuse me, what I can say is, I am on the Faith Formation Board. So I've been actually, I would say I've been blessed to be on it for 3 years now, and being able to see the transition that it's been going through. I think the first year one of the changes they made was the assessments, having 4 assessments. And I think you guys, the 3 of you, can say when you guys were going to Sunday school, it was 2 exams, correct? Like the midterm and the final. And trying to cram 10 hardcore content lessons into an exam, that's so hard. How can you get all that information into one exam, right? And I think that was a lot of stress for the kids because that's when you start using essays and all these kind of things, to make sure that they understand. And it's like Monty had said, you can't really like base everything off of exam because it's, sometimes it's just pure memorization. They put it and then they're like, what did I learn? Right. Just to, get that grade that the parents are saying, make sure you're top in their class, make sure you get a Parky ranking. So I think that was one of the biggest changes. That was like the greatest changes made is having 4 assessments and dividing up the 5 lessons so that way the kids can focus more and, have some time to learn rather than just trying to cram everything in. Also having assignments, in between, like, we have 4 assessments, which one, I like to say a quiz, a small quiz and then midterm and then another quiz and then a final. That's what I tell kids. And then these assignments, which is a work in progress, because I know previously the assignments were more like, write this essay and stuff, right? Which now with ChatGPT, are they really like getting it? But we're in the process of, trying to make it to where we can get the kids to utilize critical thinking. It's not just an answer taken from the textbook. That's not what we're looking for. We want you to justify. We want you to use personal experiences. We want you to use sources, the CCC and, all these like resource Ascension Press. So many things are out there, so many resources. We just have to get the kids to utilize them. And that is what we're hoping that these assignments will help with the kids. We're still revamping that, of course, so it's small progresses that are being made. Of course, the textbooks, that's a work that is going to take some time. I know that's the biggest thing when we ask parents and students, what's if they have any questions, stuff, when is the textbooks going to be redone? It's it's going to be a gradual process because we want to get more teachers, actual professional teachers in the school settings involved too, because they know how to like word things, in a modern way, right? But also utilize individuals who have the theology background, because we have to keep in mind all these textbook, it's theological things that we can't just have, say me go in and rewrite it. I can't, so we have to have people who have that background along with being a teacher, kind of combining a group that is actually in the works. Hopefully we can, get that up and rolling. Joe Benuchin is great in trying to implement a lot. I mean, he is just wonderful. He's a vast like knowledge of resources. If anyone out there, you guys have questions, things like that about Sunday school, about lessons, reach out to him. I'm sure he'll be able to answer any questions about that, despite his busy schedule. He's very good. But we also added on an associate director for this year. I'm sure you guys have heard Santosh Sachin from Florida. He was actually the catechism director in Pune. And so he joined and he has knowledge. I had gotten a chance to talk to him and he was telling me how teachers have to come prepared with like a 7-point model in teaching these kids. And I was like, wow, I didn't, I know we have to come prepared, but what is this 7-point model, So, hopefully in the future we'll have some training workshops, for teachers, principals, or, how we're still figuring all of that out. But that is something that's there. And then also our board has more individuals who have transitioned from Sunday school Sunday school students to teachers, so having those individuals in the board helps to implement some change too, because we're getting their perspectives. Like, you're telling us, you're shedding us light, what you went through and how we can resolve it. And as a board, we come together to try to come up with these solutions. So there's a lot of stuff going on, as I said a lot. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit where we're at. And like I said before, it's a work in progress that can take some time, but our main priority is to make sure our children get what they need as far as their faith. And that's what we're working on.
Okay. Also, one thing, since you're already on the faith formation board, I wanted to ask you this because when you are deciding on methods to use, teaching methods, curriculum development, how do you find inspiration? How do you get ideas? Is it like statistically measured? Where is this resource really coming from? Just wanted to ask that.
So are you talking about me personally or like what the board? Because
The board, yeah.
okay, so with the board, there's like different individuals on there, and people are
Mhm.
basically throwing out their ideas. And, we have an agenda, and anyone has questions, concerns, they kind of present, hey, why don't we do this year? Why don't we? And we kind of go
Mhm.
by the previous year. We have an evaluation at the end of the year. We look at what worked, what didn't work, and we kind of make changes with that. If you guys had looked at the syllabus for this year, you would have noticed that the exams for the higher grades or all the grades, they don't have an essay anymore. I'm not sure if you had noticed, they don't have an essay. So that was one of the big changes that, the board, we kind of like realized instead of having kids stress about, writing this long essay during a 1.5 hour time frame, which can cause a lot of stress for a kid, and then go to mass, that's too much. So why don't we just stick with short answers, multiple choice,
Right.
true and false, those things, and we can put the information and make sure that they understand it and things like that that are easier to answer. So yeah, the essays, that was a big change, I would say, for this year. But we still have the assignments and gradually working on that. But ideas are brought up like that. I will say, me personally, as far as like ideas for teaching methods and with teachers and stuff, we actually in Houston started doing teacher workshops on our own. We had started
Okay.
earlier this year because we realized that's important. Teachers need to know how to present the material, how to connect with their kids. And we thought, okay, let's start with teacher workshop. And so we had our first one talking about teacher methods and styles, using some kids are auditory learners, some, visual, some like to study by themselves, and we have to respect that. Right? So, we did that training with the teachers. We had another one in August, July, I think July. So we had that one in the summer about leadership, so that is something I would actually recommend parishes to be doing because teacher workshops will enhance your teachers' communication skills, how to, relate with the patient. And we have teachers presenting it because I presented the first one because always the first one is a trial, right? So I went
Mhm.
ahead and did that. But my personal expectation is each of the teachers, and this goes to all parishes, they have their own talents. They have their own skills. So utilizing those teachers to present on a topic that they are good at, and we're all learning together. Like we said earlier, we all learn together.
Mhm.
And that getting skills, learning from each of, because I think I learned some stuff from the last presentation, one of our teachers, I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. We even had like group sessions and stuff, right, Aaron? But yeah, so I think doing that in churches is a first step to try to help, the students and stuff. But yeah, those are some of the things that, for teaching styles and methods that we've been doing in Houston. And hopefully we'll
That's
incorporate as the Eparchial too.
okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, one of the reasons why I wanted to also, kind of help to facilitate this conversation as well was to kind of do the sharing of ideas. I know that in Houston, I always feel like as a teacher, especially under UJG, I feel like almost like a guinea pig where we're kind of just like throwing in different ideas and seeing what works. And so I appreciate that we're able to kind of do that. And also I love the fact that I get to know, especially being connected to like different people in different churches, right? Kason in California, Jarek in Philly, we hear about some of the ways that different churches do it. And it's also inspiring to see that, different churches also um, are rising to the challenge and taking on, different methods and different ways as well, which is why I want to go over to you, Manichechi. I've heard a lot of, really cool different ideas coming
Oh
from your
gosh.
church as well. But I wanted to ask you, like, like some of your favorites, but especially like teaching methods, right? What are you seeing in terms of like the ways that teachers and maybe you as a principal, how are you kind of implementing that in your own parish?
Yeah. I don't know if we're doing a lot. Maybe we are. I just want to touch on what Siby said really quick, though, about the teacher workshops. That's actually something one of my Sunday school teachers has been pestering me about. We should be doing that as well. So that's actually we should bring that up to the Eparchy and maybe start that,
If you want, I can share my present, the first one, and then you can
Would
go
love it.
from there.
It's a great idea. But yeah, as far as teaching styles, I mean, like Siby also said, everyone has so many different talents and styles of teaching. I will say, like, as a nurse, part of my job as a nurse is to teach. So I feel like I'm a really shy person. Like, I don't like to talk much. And like, but when I became a nurse, I was like, oh, I have to do this job. So I kind of brought that aspect into Sunday school as principaling too, where I have to talk to the kids and I have to teach them and like educate them. So that's like my style of teaching, is just like bringing that into church. But ideas that we've had, since I become principal, we've been trying to make it more so the kids are teaching the kids. So we're having like the 12th graders kind of take on the leadership roles per se, and like doing events outside of Sunday school. So we have our teachers that are teaching Sunday school every Sunday morning, but then like one of our ideas was we're doing a buddy system that we started in 2023, where like the 12th graders, I get all these ideas from like my schooling when I was a kid. So like the 12th graders are paired up with a kindergartner or a first grader, and then they like made them Easter baskets for Easter, and then like they'll do crafts together at like our MCCL events. Like, so that kindergartner and first grader knows that they have a Chacha and Chechi that they can rely on. And like, if they need help with something, they don't want to go to their teachers for it, they can go to the Chacha and Chechi and be like, oh, can you help me with this thing? Or can we be friends? Like, I just feel like it facilitates like bonding between the 12th graders and the younger kids, right? And it also teaches the 12th graders that they can take these like, leadership roles on like in the future, hopefully. That was one of our ideas that we've implemented. And then also we have morning sessions every Sunday for Sunday school. And one of the ideas we had was also having the high school grades kind of come and teach a lesson every morning. So there was one where we built an altar like in front of the altar for the kids to like look at it, and like we had altar servers come up and like point everything out and be like, this is what this is used for, and like, do you know what the bells mean? And like it was just like an interactive thing that the older kids were teaching the younger kids. So I just like, we're trying to just move away from this lecturing kind of aspect of Sunday school, right? Like, we don't want to just talk at the kids anymore. We kind of want to get it interactive, and we want them to come up and like teach each other basically. Our MCCL board is really good at, we've done so many events where the board teaches the younger kids and like does activities and crafts. So many more ideas. I think when in Jarek's year, there was the teacher when Jarek was in 12th grade, wanted to facilitate a program where we kind of bonded the older Chacha and Chechis that like kind of left the church with the younger Chacha or younger kids. So we had like a big bonfire where like 12th grade wasn't responsible for inviting the older people and also the younger people to come to this big event and just have a good time. And I mean, it worked out great. We like sang songs. There was a bonfire. Bob Witchin was brand new and he came and like hung out with us. So I think we're just trying to move away from the lecturing, like I said, and make it more fun, which sometimes when older people see us having fun, they think we're not learning, but we are, just in a different way for the kids. The kids of just a generation need something different than what we had, right? Because I remember just sitting and being lectured at for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And it was fine for me, but we can't do that anymore. So every idea we have is kind of geared towards how can we get them involved more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, teaching shouldn't be monolithic. It should be, variety of things that's coming together. I think when you mentioned that the altar, right, in front of the altar, like a small setup, right, of saying what goes where, why do we use some of these material, the divine tools, all that stuff. I think those are amazing ways to actually point out, especially like, Dubokuti, like, the sensor, right? I learned a lot from, Achin actually showing it to me in person and showing, okay, what each of these links mean, the code means, all of that in person. I really love an interactive experience rather than just reading it from a textbook and, okay, now have an exam on it. Okay, what does this mean? What is it? I really agree with that.
I mean, that whole altar presentation that they did, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah, like even I was listening too, and like it was like a 12th grader, he like was like, do you want to touch the bells to the kids like on the fans? And I was like, I do. This is so cool. I've never seen this so close and personal. Like I think it's cool. So I'm hoping the kids are enjoying it too, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love the fact, Chichi, that you started off with, oh, I don't think it's much or anything, and then you started off just rattling out some amazing ideas. No, that's awesome. Like you said, I feel like sometimes in our church it almost seems like some of the parts of our church almost seem like they're gate kept, like
Mm.
they're gatekeeping like everything from like really being, because for me, like church is like the fullness of truth, right? There is a completion to really understanding what our faith is, and I think over time as we get older, there's like that thirst for knowledge as well, and like you said, like the kids respond to that as well, especially, and you as you're older as well, and you're seeing this, and you're wanting to grasp that as well. So it's a beautiful thing, especially to be able to deliver this kind of knowledge and fullness and truth to a generation that will get much more than we were able to get when we were younger. And so honestly, there's just a lot of there's a lot of happiness when I hear like these stories of like different churches being able to implement different things. And like we talked about, I'm hoping that this session is a good facilitation of different ideas that we'll be able to kind of continue to inspire, and hopefully CBJH, being able to bring this up to the Faith Formation Board and be able to implement this on an Eparchial scale to kind of continue to inspire the next generation. So absolutely some great ideas. I wanted to move forward as well. We talked about the different ideas. We talked about them in the local sense, and we talked about the Faith Formation Board specifically. But I kind of wanted to move forward, especially to the beginning parts that CBJH had talked about, which was the talking about some of the work that the diocese, like the hierarchical level side, the higher levels, what some of the specific works that they are doing. I wanted to kind of re-mention them again. So CBJH, you talked about textbooks, right? Rewriting these textbooks.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more on that, and maybe some other topics on how we're kind of moving forward with those specific topics?
So honestly, I don't have too much information. Like I said earlier, it's a work in progress. I think right now it's mainly trying to find a group of people to assist with this. That's like the priority, and that is hard because you know, realistically, who has the time, right? I mean, we're all here, we're doing stuff for the church, but at the same time, we have our personal life, and we're trying to get this work-life balance, but it's more like a work-church-life balance, right? So there's like so much going on. So trying to find people who are committed to this project, that is kind of where we're at right now. Um, and if you guys know anybody, listeners out there, if you are a professional teacher, have theology background, would like to join this project, because this will be a big life changer for our kids. And anyone who wants to join, just let us know, because I know, excuse me, that's what Jobinich is looking for. We want to make sure that people are going to be in this from the beginning to the end. It's not like, let's start this, I'm eager, but then halfway through, I can't do this, because that's going to be an injustice for our kids. We can't leave a task, a project just hanging. We have to fulfill this. And that is Joe Benuchin's ultimate goal right now, is to get these textbooks rewritten. For the time being, we're having to use supplemental texts. The 11th and 12th graders have that, which is important, because those grades, that's where you need that strong faith teacher to make sure that they can go over these things in the supplemental textbook and make sure that these kids are going out into college ready and prepared. It's like Aaron had said earlier about defending your faith, right? We can't let these kids leave Sunday school questioning and still wondering, because then that is when they're going to seek the answers from people that they're surrounding with who may not be Catholic. And so that's why using these supplemental textbooks are very important. But there's Eparchial has the website. I'm not sure if everyone knows, but that's a good source of communication for everyone to go on. I think it's like MC Catechism. Okay,
We'll
good. Yeah,
we'll
because
have it up.
yeah, please do, because I encourage everyone to go on there and look, because there's a lot of stuff there too, and it's gonna be updated also as we go, because there's always gonna be stuff added to there. So right now, that's the main thing that is going on. The textbook is our priority, but in order to do that, we need the right group of people to be able to work on that. But then also there is some talk about trying to do training and workshops for teachers, like us board members possibly meeting, not like virtual, but as board members meeting together in a place in person, going over some training, and then taking that back to whatever parish, or and making it regional, possibly like a regional kind of thing, training sessions with your different regions, because um, there are smaller parishes, and I really feel for them, because Philly and Houston, we're blessed, we have a big parish, but at the same time we need to look at our smaller parishes. They may not be able to get to their church like as quick as we do, 10-15 minutes. They may have to drive an hour or an hour and a half, barriers for that. And so it can be difficult, so taking that into consideration, and helping those smaller churches also in a regional, um, looking at it in a regional way, and maybe doing some trainings like that, and just kind of offering that support for them. Those are some of the things that we're looking at.
I think you said an amazing point too, because in my life, when I came to Camp Spark, actually, I looked at a lot of how MCYM members did stuff, right? And I was able to carry that back to San Jose in some way and get a group of people going too. I think it starts with some inspiration. There's like a small little candle you have in your hand. You just want to light more candles and keep the fire of the flame going. And yes, I think these investments that we make currently, I mean, what we're doing right now, will benefit us so much in the future, especially since there's a big change from like a lot of the text from India to here. I mean, there's a big jump, right? The lingo, the way things are described, right? I think a lot of them, of course, needs to be molded for the language of what we speak in the United States and I mean North America, right, in general. So I think what you guys are doing is amazing. Looking at amazing ideas from other people, maybe looking for the right resources, asking the right people, right? Not just anyone who's just eager for like 10 minutes and just drops off, right? A person who's committed to the whole process, not leaving a job undone. I think we need that, and I think there'll be recognition for that. I mean, it's a great thing, even though people may not see it now, but generations will thank you for that. Generations will thank you. So thank you so much, at least on my behalf, on behalf of like the smaller churches. At least I'm part of San Jose, right? We thank you for that, at least keeping us in mind while you guys are sorting through this. It means a lot. We would love more inspirations like that, right? And we could carry it to different places and do God's work.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of touch on one of the points that Vijay talked about, which was the supplemental text. And for me, it like really helped me a lot, because as an 11th grade teacher, especially going through the material in the book, I realized like one of the things was that it wasn't really like prepping students for the next step, which was like really specifically more talking about like how is the church really acting in your current life, right? What are some of the issues that you're seeing, and maybe not current life in terms of like a personal way, but maybe more in terms of in the societal way. How in society is the Catholic Church really being presented and really being viewed? And I feel like the supplementary text really sheds a little bit more light on the Catholic Church's view on like current day topics. And I wanted to bring this up and like take a little bit of time to kind of highlight this, because I feel like, especially if you're an 11th or 12th grade student, or if you're an 11th or 12th grade teacher, I hope you have this resource with you. And I hope that this is being taught as well, because I feel like this is also, like it says in the title, the supplementary text, it's a supplement to what we're teaching within our book as well. And I know that over time, like the goal for us is obviously to be able to get textbooks that are rewritten and reformatted, whatever that may be presented as. But in the meantime, however, this is definitely important, specifically because it talks about like a wide variety of topics, such as abortion, contraception, euthanasia, homosexuality, same-sex marriage, transgenderism. But for me personally, my favorite parts of it is like the beginning, the 2 or 3 chapters, where it really talks about how does the Catholic Church approach questions? How does the Catholic Church approach, like the different challenges of the world, and what is the way that we are able to break down, these questions that are kind of, eroding on the faith of our kids. And so I hope that people over time, if you're going back to Sunday school, or you're sitting at home and you're kind of bored, and eventually you'll make your way to the website, and you'll make your way to finding this supplemental text and be able to read through it, because it definitely, for me as a teacher, I was able to read through it and really inspired me to open my eyes and see like, oh wow, okay, so this is a little more of, this is a way that I can show this to my students, and I was able to like learn a lot from it as well, and I can use this resource to teach my own students as well. So definitely there's material coming out. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I wanted to kind of step gears a little bit as well, and talk, change gears a little bit, and talk about not just the specific material, but the from the hierarchical side, from the eparchy, that kind of material that's being passed down, but also in terms of what we as in the adult world can do in terms of growing in our own faith, right? How our kids are able to kind of grow in their faith after they've completed Sunday school as well. I feel like this is a kind of like a rising challenge as well as they kind of step out into the world. For me and Kason, of course, a way that we were able to do this was, becoming teachers. And I wanted to kind of start off this conversation by starting off by your guys' opinion on how can our kids, after they finish off Sunday school, how can they continue growing their catechism faith? Manichechi, can you start off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say just what you said. Like, the way I did it was by becoming a Sunday school teacher, right? I taught kindergarten, but still I did that just to stay in the know, like to just be present in Sunday school always. And like we've mentioned multiple times already, like we're all still learning as we go through the process, especially as principal now, when I have to sub for any random given grade on a Sunday, I have to read the chapter, and then I do more research, from the supplemental text that you guys are mentioning, but then also I just Google things and I'm like, what do I want to get across today to them in these chapters? But yeah, I think hopefully when our kids graduate and they feel a need to want to come back and teach or just be present and be there for the kids still, obviously going to mass and praying and all of that will help keep their faith as well, and hopefully continuing to learn catechism. But I think the biggest thing is just being consistent, right? I always said in my church, consistency is key. Just showing up every Sunday, just at the bare minimum, just showing up every Sunday is the best way to continue growing in your faith, right? So that was my goal as principal, is just to show the kids that I'm going to be here for you every single Sunday. And I hope that instills enough in them to be like, I want to do what she's doing and also continue this as I grow up. Although my 12th graders that graduated last year didn't reach out about teaching yet, but I'll get on them. I'll get them back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Chichi, do you have any, I guess, ideas for, especially as our 12th graders? Like you said, you had conversations with 12th graders as they graduated. So I guess, is there any parting words that you kind of inspire, lead to them?
We actually have a graduation kind of get together for them. So we do, graduation of everybody, like high school, college, all that kind of stuff. But we have a separate graduation party for just the Sunday school students, the 12th grade students. And this was our Hutchins idea, actually. So I'm not going to claim credit for it. And he had thought, we're doing this party for them. And then he also said, bring the 11th graders, and they will be the ones coordinating it. So they're the ones who are setting up, decorating, all that kind of stuff for the 12th graders. And the 12th graders and families, they come. And during that time, we just kind of have a little discussion with them just to see how Sunday school was, what they learned, and, kind of asking questions and having a little discussion. Try not to put them on the spot because it is a get together, a party for them. But then also, me personally, I will talk to them and give them this is not the end, right? You graduated Sunday school, you are going to college, whether you're staying here in Houston or you're going, out of city, out of state, always know your faith and always remember that. And I always, I try to get them this book about, it's a small book, How to Stay Catholic while in college, something like that. I have it on my Amazon thing to purchase for this upcoming party to give to them. But it's small. It's not like a big, humongous book where they have to read through it. It's a really small book to help them while they're in college, when questions arise and all this kind of stuff. And just to have that available, but also letting them know that the teachers are still here, that even though you're done with Sunday school, we're still here. You're not done with us. You see us every Sunday. You can always approach us. So we encourage that relationship to continue. And it's kind of good that we have MCYMS teachers because they are transitioned to MCYM. And so it's easier to go to them to ask questions and stuff. So that's something, we had started doing with the party and talking to them and giving them words of advice. Same thing like Monty said, getting those 12th graders. I don't wait for them to approach. I just go. I'm like, hey, you want to be a teacher? All right, come on, let's go.
I got to get on it. I'll get on it.
So I just approach them and, I find a spot for them. Of course, I'm not going to put them in higher grades, anything like that. I stick to those primary grades, the baby classes, pre-K, kindergarten, first, second, like that. Because, they're just coming out of Sunday school. So starting there and then eventually hoping that they continue to stay and then moving them up so the new students can then come in and take over. And if I don't have a spot, we have teacher assistants. If they want to really want to be involved, we place them as long as the teacher is okay with having them as an assistant, just to be there to have some more discussion. Because sometimes, teachers, they try to get students to open up. They may not be opening up. But if you have like a classmate who's close to your age, who's there as an assistant, they can probably help, with that discussion stuff. So keeping them involved in Sunday school like that. But also just like I said, Mike, my husband, he's MCYM animator. So I always tell him, hey, these kids are yours. Make sure they're participating. Get on them because I know their potential. Reach out to them. They can be your joint positions and all that kind of stuff. Don't let them, because sometimes they just kind of shy away. But we as teachers, we see the potential that they have. And we may have to just kind of draw that out of them, give them a little nudge. And once they do, they're off on their own. They'll do it. So yeah, those are some of the things. And I would like to see more involvement with church stuff, but I know that can be hard. Like higher up because opportunities, there's a trust thing, right, with the elders of our community who have paved this way for us, we've learned a lot from, that they will look at these kids, oh, you guys are just kids. I don't know if you can handle this, but reality is they can. They just need to be given an opportunity to. So I think just giving them a sense of responsibility, assigning these tasks, leadership roles, that will help them stay in the church. If they are outside of Houston, going out of state, if they are near Mallinckrodt Church, encourage them to go to a mass and, participate. If they can't, just go to an English service, just, because that helps too, attending church and staying strong in that faith. So, yeah.
I just wanted to say, a big thank you to you for, saying that. I just wanted to, from my experiences of drawing from Catechism, Catechism is basically an initial moment in evangelization, right? Where we're really starting our journey into life, how to defend it, especially when you talked about defense of your faith, right? Apologetics is the technical term, right? I think that for me in my life has deepened my faith more than anything that I've seen. Because it's not about, you got to put your ego aside when it comes to stuff like this. When you are, you're presented with someone who doesn't believe necessarily what you're believing, especially as Catholics, we get a lot of flack for our beliefs, but it's due to a lot of misunderstanding. When we read the Catechism of the Catholic Church, when we read our Sunday school books, you actually have a completely different answer from what they're actually thinking of. Like we're actually have a truthful answer to every question that they have. It's just they have assumptions. Usually people have assumptions of what Catholics believe. And unfortunately, there is a lot of, I think even in the church, there is no, there's no energy to kind of tackle that, I would say. So I think as, youth coming up in the church, we have to have the energy to, counteract, of course, in a civil manner, in asking questions, right? You got to think deeply about your faith. So, you can't have shallow faith. Your faith is going to be tested. I think Jerry actually talked about this too. It's not blind faith. You're not supposed to be blind and going into it. Your faith is going to be tested, and how you stand up for it is really how you will carry on this church, right? So we read in one of our Tubulans, which is the but again, right? In one of the intercessions that we make, we make a quick thank you to the fathers who have passed down the faith undefiled, right? We're just doing that for the new generations. We're supposed to take what was given to us and hand it over to our children, and so that they could carry it on to future generations, right? Churches have been here for 2,000 years, something that was instituted by Christ on this earth, right? And the apostles, we stand on the shoulders of the martyrs and the confessors, right? So catechism is actually just continuation of that. I think if I'm going to ask people around my age, it is that, hey, catechism has a lot of potential. Even when you become a teacher, or when you become a teacher, you have a lot to learn from that, as well as when you're teaching a lot of students, right? You're giving them this information, and I suggest you read more into the faith, find more texts. And I suggest this too, is that go read the early church fathers. We don't. I noticed, at least in our Manaka church, we don't have too many of that per se, at least from the early church fathers. But read that. I think that's a great way to grow in your faith, and even getting to the apologetic side of things too. So that's one thing I want to say on top of that.
You bring up a good point, kind of on the idea of like reading from like the church fathers. I think like some like recently some of like the most uh like the best way that I've really seen that being presented so far is like at the bottom of our new like books for mass. There's like the descriptions of exactly how our liturgy goes, and there's a lot of the mentions of the early church fathers, and how they saw, and this is at least more on the side in terms of the liturgy, but in terms of like how the liturgy was like structured and how that structure came about, why certain prayers are said certain ways. And for me, it kind of provides me a lot more into, it brings me more into the idea of like, this is material that I am learning from, right? That's outside of Sunday school, right? But it is still very mangara, right? And so, so for me, it's very much like a taste to kind of welcoming into my own heart, like the fact that education doesn't necessarily have to just be in a general sense about what the faith is or what the Catholic Church principles are, right? It can be about the history, right? It can be about what our church is teaching us, not just in terms of actual like positions or policy positions, right? But on what the early church fathers had to go through and how we became where we are, and all of it comes together to give our basically our Mullingar identity. And I think that's just a beautiful thing to come to tie back into. Because looking at it, I love who I am, right? I love being Mullingar, and I hope that Catechism, our Sunday school kids, also really feel that as well. I hope that they feel that they love being a Mullingar Catholic.
I think also one thing I want to highlight, especially when we're talking about teaching of the church, we cannot overlook the definition of the word magisterium, right? There's this endowed, infallible position that we have in our church, which is the magisterium of the Catholic Church, right? It is able to infallibly teach on matters of this. So that is something that we could confidently say when we are going to defend our faith, because we have a template. I think, Aaron, you mentioned this. We have a template for how we answer moral questions. There is a moral law that is already written on the hearts of every individual, right? It just, how it's presented, the magisterium actually talks about that very in depth. So I suggest, go read the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Will give you a good idea of the magisterium's positions, as well as if you are. When I read through the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it's very dense, right? So I hop here and there to find answers. But I realized one of the best ways to learn from the Catechism of the Catholic Church is actually going to the index and finding keywords that you like, and then going to the topics that you want, so you could gain much more of an idea on what the church really teaches and topics that are interesting to you. So that's what I wanted to say. So I couldn't hold the word the magisterium out of this conversation, because it is super important.
Yeah, it's good.
But
I appreciate that you mentioned it. It's good.
Yeah. But I do want to move on with another question, though, for you guys. Especially, we're all teachers here, and I think we all have to ask ourselves this question: is how can we grow in our faith, right? We are teaching. We have a lot of responsibility on us as catechists, right? It is a calling, as we discussed. So we had to make an examination every time we teach, every year, maybe even every lesson, right? Before we go into it, we got to make a prayer. We got to analyze our hearts and examine our hearts and move forward with that. So I just want to ask, how can teachers continue to grow in their faith? CBJG, want?
Okay. I think teachers growing in their faith, it's a process, right? We're always going to be growing no matter what age you get. So we lead by example. That's the main thing. We can't expect our kids to go to confession if we're not going to confession, right? We need to show up to church. We need to be punctual. We can't ask kids to do stuff if we're not doing it ourselves. So that's the number one thing I would say, is leading by example, first off. Now, growing in faith, it's continuing education. I think Mani and I, we work in a field where we're required to get CEUs, continuing educations, right? So we, as professionals, we are learning all the time with these courses and doing continuing education. And as teachers, catechists, that's what we need to do also, continue education. That's why we should have these training workshops, learning more, because there's so many things out there. We have to present it. We can easily go on Google and learn ourselves, but if we're doing it as a group together, it makes a difference because you feel that unity and you feel like, hey, we're in this together. We're growing spiritually together to help our kids. That's one of the things. Use the resources around you. You know, like we have so many Geriachen, Jobanachin, so many Achins, like your local parishes that have so much knowledge, sisters, just using them when you have questions yourself as catechists, you know, that because there are sometimes I can't answer something and I go to Achin or I reach out to Jobanachin and I was like, I had a student tell me this. What should I do? How do I handle this? You know, um, it, don't be scared to go to them because they are there to help us with that and utilizing those resources um, to be able to help with the spiritual part. There's also a catechism teacher's guide. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that. Our viewers out there who are teachers, that Joe Benuchin had put together. Everything it's like Joe Benuchin has put together. I feel like I'm promoting. But yeah, he has this catechism teacher's guide that was sent out before. If you're not using that, I strongly recommend utilizing that because that not only has a lot of information on our history, the Mullingar Church and history, it also has information on how to work with kids at different stages in their life. What works best for them? What doesn't work best for them? And it's a lot of information, but it's a good source of tool to use, especially when teaching nowadays, because that's what's important. Just getting the resources, the right resources, and using those. That's what's going to help us grow.
All right, great answer. Marichichi?
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I rely a lot on Achin mainly, but my uncles also. They're just so knowledgeable, right? My uncles know everything. So I would literally say growing in faith is me talking to them helps me grow in faith. But other than that, also I really want to shout out our MCYM. I'm not gonna lie, I think they're the reason why I'm still like as active as I am and am growing in my faith is that they like Jarek will literally text me and be like, come to this event. And then when I'm there, he'll be like, thanks for coming to this event. Like, you really mean a lot by being here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I will never stop going to this because you guys are just, I don't know, they just like make me want to keep practicing my faith, which then helps me want to help the younger kids learn about faith and be like continue growing their faith as well. And I think that goes for a lot of our teachers too, because we also have a lot of young teachers who are also in MCYM. And I just think the faith in our MCYM is so strong that like it builds upwards towards us to then push it back out onto our kids, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I think that's how like we're growing in faith. But yeah, Joe Benuchin is the best person I know. He is so knowledgeable, so resourceful. I think he'll help. I'll text him in the wee like hours of the night and he'll like respond within seconds almost and just always be there. And I think that's helpful in growing our faith too. I don't know, there's so many things we could do to grow our faith and this community makes it so easy, right? Like just being here is just I don't know. Right now, I feel like I'm growing in faith talking to you guys. Like, I don't know. It's just so easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Chichi, I think both of y'all have especially like kind of brought out a lot of my own thoughts in terms of like cat. Because I remember like coming into the conversation or before even recording this, when we were like planning out an episode, thinking about like, oh, we should talk about catechism. I think one of the first thoughts in my mind was like, I felt like a lot of like the negative aspects where like I wanted to like really come in and start criticizing. But I think the more and more I thought of it, I realized like we are in such a great position, right, to continue to develop this program that we call like Sunday school, we would call catechism for our church, right? And over time, I see it, especially as we've talked about today, being able to listen in on some of the multiple ideas, the resources that we have, not just from like the internet, because of course we use like resources from the outside, but also within our church as well, right? The abundance of knowledge within our church and being able to gather that, having someone to be able to facilitate that, which is you guys as principals, and continue to foster that environment. And for the primarily aim for our younger students, but then also having these ramifications that are just so positive to the community around us, right? To our Mullingar churches, to our not the youth and their parents, but to their community as they go to their schools and they're focusing on their education, they're focusing on their friendships, their relationships in the future, what kind of men and women they are going to be, not just in the eyes of our community, but in front of God, and the impact that they continue to have. It's such a profound impact that it kind of boggles the mind in terms of like the amount of power, but at the same time the grace that the Lord gives us to give these, to drop these opportunities onto our laps. And so, yeah, thank y'all for continuing to be an inspiration, to continue to share your knowledge to us, and to continue to, you know, do the work, right? We
Yeah.
continue to have such amazing people in our community, and we hope to continue to highlight, you know, some of these voices as well as we continue on with TWT Thomas. And I hope that, you know, our listeners were able to get a good bit of knowledge. Yeah, Kason, anything else you wanted to say?
No, I'm very thankful that we're doing this episode. I think we have to have a conversation about how we learn things, right? Especially with, you know, I think why we had this podcast was for a learning moment, right? Because I'm curious about, and Aaron, you could attest to this, Jared, I could attest to this too, is very curious about, you know, just about anything in the church, right? We want to learn what our perspectives are, what others, you know, what others may say about us. So we know we want to learn what the church's teachings are. And I think a great episode like this can do a lot of favor for our community, for our youth, especially when you talked about the missions, right? I think that really touched my heart, especially when you guys talked about that. I really found that as a, you know, you guys thought about us and you guys want us to move forward and learn from the big churches. I think that's a one thing that I really take away from this episode. Also, I just wanted to say is that, you know, let's continue to be, you know, echoing to the voice of the church. Because actually the meaning of catechism is to echo, to echo the teachings of Christ that was handed down to his apostles and disciples and undefiled and handed over to us, right? So, and just like that, we just have to keep it going. And of course, times may change, right? Teachings don't change, but the ways we approach teaching has to change, right? So I think knowing that as the theme of catechism, I think we will do wonders for our church.
Yeah, and absolutely. Thank y'all both again for coming in. Any final thoughts y'all wanted to share?
Well, yeah, I just want to say thank you guys for allowing us to come on here and talk. I know it's a big topic. I can keep going. I mean, there's so many more things we could have talked about, but this opportunity to talk about it was amazing. I mean, I learned so much just from hearing Siby talk too, so that was lovely for me. But yeah, I think the biggest thing like that I want to instill in our kids is just I don't know, just keep going through it. Like Sunday school, it's not everyone's like number one priority, of course, but I just think it's so important to know first to learn basic Catholicism and also the Munkar history, and then to carry that through after you graduate, like after 12th grade, and use all the resources and come back. And we're always here. Like, I don't know, it's just so rich. Like material in catechism is so rich and like so important to build your faith and to be like to know who God is, right? So I hope our kids will take something from this episode. And yeah, thank you guys.
Of course.
I just want to say thank you both also, because this is I would say this is a hot topic, you know, catechism. That's what everyone's talking about, how we can improve and everything. I did learn some things from Monty too, so don't underestimate yourself. I learned some things, got some ideas too, rolling in my head as we speak. But I think one of the things that I want to tell our children is, you know, have open communication. You know, don't be scared to ask questions. Don't be shy. I always tell kids there is no dumb question, because a lot of times they're scared, like, I think this question is dumb. You know, I don't know if I should ask this or not. So there's no dumb questions. Ask those questions. As teachers, if we don't have the answer, we will reach out to get those answers. Feel comfortable enough to approach, especially now that we're having like a younger generation, you know, youth coming on board teaching will help them open up more, is what I'm hoping. So that way they can get those answers from us in our church. And I keep emphasizing this because it's always on my mind, instead of getting answers from outside, you know, people who don't know our faith and is just going to say something, you know, who, you know, is not practicing the faith as we are. So that is something that I just want to encourage our kids, and don't give up. Don't worry about the exams and all this stressful stuff. We can have fun in Sunday school. Yes, I said that. Don't worry, Monty. I told you we can have fun in Sunday school and at the same time get the information out there in a fun way to our kids. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you both again. Thank you, listeners, for listening. And like, you know, everyone said, continue these conversations. These are important things to talk about. And yeah, thank you again for listening.
Purpose, good day.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into this episode of Tea with Thomas. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. Don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to our channel for more conversations. If you'd like to help support us, check out the links in the description.
If you have any questions, comments, or topics you would like for us to talk about, please feel free to put them in the comments below. We would love to hear from you guys.
And for more behind the scenes content and updates, follow us on our Instagram at Tea with Thomas. Until next episode, stay curious, stay blessed, and let's continue to share our Catholic voices and ideas to this world. May the good Lord bless you all. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.